The rain came down in sheets that Thursday evening, hammering the roof of the storage unit like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Lieutenant Colonel David Hayes stood alone in the dim space, surrounded by cardboard boxes that smelled of mothballs and distant memories. His hands trembled as he pulled open the flap of the box marked Kuwait 91. Inside, wrapped in faded olive cloth, lay the silver star. David lifted it carefully, the metal cold against his palm. The citation was still there, yellowed with age, describing how Second Lieutenant David Hayes had pulled 3 wounded men from a burning Bradley fighting vehicle under heavy fire. He had been 23 years old then, immortal and fearless. Now, at 54, he felt neither did his German shepherd, sergeant named in honor of the rank David had held longest pressed against his leg. The dog was 7 years old, trained for base security before retiring to civilian life with David after his own medical discharge. Sergeant's dark eyes watched his handler with the intensity that came from years of reading human emotions in combat zones. "She's gone, Sarge," David whispered. "Amanda's really gone." His daughter had left 3 days ago, taking only a backpack and her mother's old wedding ring. No explanation. Just an empty bedroom and a father's breaking heart. David set the silver star back in the box. But his hand brushed against something that shouldn't have been there, an empty space where another item had always rested. His bronze star medal, the one with the V device for valor, earned during a firefight in Fallujah. The one Amanda used to ask about when she was little, tracing the ribbon with tiny fingers. It was gone. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister. "David, I'm worried. Amanda called me asking about pawn shops downtown. Said she needed money fast. I tried to talk to her, but she hung up." David's blood went cold. Sergeant stood, sensing the shift in his handler's energy, a low whine escaping his throat. Amanda was pawning his medals. The physical proof of the worst and best moments of his life. The tangible evidence that he had mattered, that his service had meant something. He thought back to 6 months ago, when Amanda's mother, his ex-wife Jennifer, had died suddenly from an aneurysm. Amanda had been 19, finishing her first year at State. David had tried to be there for her, but he didn't know how. He was trained to secure perimeters and lead convoys, not navigate the minefield of his daughter's grief. She'd grown distant, angry. She blamed him for the divorce. Years ago. For choosing duty over family, for the deployments that meant he missed birthdays and recitals. Jennifer's death had torn open every old wound. And now, Amanda was destroying the only things David had left from a life spent serving his country. He grabbed his jacket and keys. Sergeant was already at the storage unit door, ears forward, ready. The dog knew a mission when he saw one. "We're getting it back, Sarge," David said, his voice hardening into the tone he'd used to address his platoon. "We're getting all of it back." The rain soaked them both as they ran to the truck. David's hand shook as he started the engine, not from fear, but from something deeper, the terror of losing his daughter and his past in one devastating blow. Downtown was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes to find Amanda, before she traded away pieces of his soul for whatever desperate reason drove her into the storm. Part 2. The pawn shop trail downtown Fort Carson sprawled in the shadow of Cheyenne Mountain, a mix of old military town and modern sprawl. David drove through the rain-slicked streets, Sergeant riding shotgun with his head out the window despite the weather, nose working to process the 1,000 cents of the city. David's sister had mentioned pawn shops downtown, but there were at least 8 within a 5-mile radius. He started with the closest one, a dingy storefront called American Treasures, with barred windows and a flickering neon sign. Inside, the shop smelled of dust and desperation. A heavy-set man behind bulletproof glass looked up from his phone. "Help you?" David pulled out his phone, showing a photo of Amanda, her high school graduation picture. Cap tilted at an angle, smile bright and genuine. Have you seen this girl? She might have tried to sell some military medals. The man barely glanced at the screen. We get a lot of folks in here. Can't remember everyone. These aren't just medals, David said, keeping his voice level despite the fury building in his chest. They're bronze and silver stars. They're distinctive. They're illegal to sell. That got the man's attention. Look, pal, I run a legitimate business. If someone tried to sell stolen valor stuff, I'd turn them away. Haven't seen you a girl. David believed him. The man was too comfortable, too dismissive. He would have remembered Amanda. 3 more shops yielded nothing. At the 4th, a place called Old Glory Pawn. The owner, a Vietnam veteran named Carl, at least showed sympathy. I know what those medals mean, Carl said, his eyes on the faded 1st Cavalry patch tattooed on his forearm. If your daughter comes in here, I'll call you first. But son, if she's desperate enough to sell her father's medals, she's hurting bad. Money's just a symptom. And David knew that. God, he knew that. But knowing didn't help him find her dot. It was Sergeant who changed everything dot at the 5th shop. Capital City Pawn. Sergeant suddenly went rigid as David parked the truck. The dog's nose lifted, testing the air through the cracked window. Then he barked sharp, insistent, the alert bark that meant target acquired. You smell her, boy? David asked. Sergeant barked again, scrambling at the door. David let him out but kept him on leash. The German shepherd pulled hard toward the pawn shop entrance, then veered right into the alley beside the building. There, huddled under a rusted fire escape, sat Amanda Dot. She was soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face, arms wrapped around a small backpack. When she saw David, her expression crumpled into something between relief and defiance. Amanda, don't, she said, her voice breaking. Just don't, Dad. David approached slowly, like he would a spooked civilian in a combat zone. Sergeant strained at the leash, whining, wanting to go to her. Amanda had helped raise him from a puppy, back when she still visited on weekends. I'm not here to yell, David said quietly. I'm here because you're my daughter and I love you. You love your medals more, Amanda spat, but there was no heat in it. Only exhaustion. You love your war stories and your uniform and your stupid rules about duty and sacrifice. Is that what you think? That's what I know. She stood, stumbling slightly. Mom died, and you didn't even cry at the funeral. You just stood there like a statue. Like always. I needed you to be human, Dad, and you couldn't even do that. The words hit harder than any eye blast. David felt his throat tighten. I didn't know how, he admitted. I've spent 30 years in the Army, learning how to lock everything down, how to compartmentalize. I thought being strong meant not breaking. Amanda pulled something from her backpack. The bronze star, still in its case. I couldn't do it, she whispered. I stood in there for 20 minutes, and I couldn't give it to them. Because Mom told me once what you did to earn it. She said you saved a translator's family, got them out of a firefight even though command said to leave them. She said you risked your career for people who weren't even American. David remembered. The Almanser family. 3 children and their parents, huddled in a building while insurgents closed in. Your mom exaggerated. No. Amanda's voice was fierce now. She didn't. And I realized standing in that shop that I was trying to hurt you the only way I knew how. Because you were the only parent I had left, and I was so angry. Her voice broke completely. David closed the distance and pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing, and for the first time since Jennifer's funeral. David let himself cry too. Sergeant pressed against both of them, whining softly, his tail wagging and slow. Concerned arcs. They stood in the rain, father and daughter. Finally breaking together. Part 3. The real mission. David's apartment was small and sparse, exactly what one would expect from a career officer living alone. Amanda sat on the worn couch, wrapped in a blanket, while Sergeant rested his head on her lap. The Bronze Star sat on the coffee table between them, a silent witness. "The shop owner at Capital City Pawn recognized me," Amanda said quietly, nursing a cup of hot tea. "Mr. Chun. He asked if I was military. I said my father was. He told me he couldn't accept the medal, that it would be disrespectful." David felt a wave of gratitude toward a stranger he'd never met. "Why did you need money, Amanda? You have your college fund. You have—" "I don't want your money, Dad." She set down the teacup, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't want anything that comes from the Army." The words stung, but David kept his expression neutral. "Then what were you going to use the pawn money for?" Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Sergeant licked her hand, and she stroked his ears absently. "There's a girl in my dorm, Maya. She's active duty, doing college through a military education program. Army Reserves." David nodded, waiting. "Her younger brother, Tyler, is 12. He's sick, leukemia. Their mom died when he was little, and their dad bailed years ago. Maya's his legal guardian, but she's barely keeping it together. The medical bills are crushing her. Even with Trekkeree, she's going to drop out. Maybe leave the reserves, just to work full-time and help him." Amanda looked up at David, her eyes red but clear. "I wanted to help her. I thought if I could get a few $1,000s, maybe it would buy them some time. But I didn't have anything valuable except—" She gestured at the medal. David sat back, processing. His daughter had tried to sell his Bronze Star, not for herself, but for a friend in need. It was stupid and impulsive and completely, achingly human. "You should have come to me," he said. "And say what?" "Dad, I know we barely talk, and I resent everything you stand for, but can I have money for a friend you've never met?" Amanda's voice was bitter. "You would have lectured me about responsibility and making smart financial decisions." She wasn't wrong. That was exactly what the old David would have done. "Tell me about Maya," David said instead. Amanda blinked, surprised. "What? Tell me about her." "And her brother." So she did. Maya Rodriguez, 21, specialist in the Army Reserves, studying nursing. Deployed once to Kuwait for 9 months. Her brother Tyler was 12, diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 8 months ago. The treatment was working, but the costs, copays, travel to specialists, time off work were drowning them. "She's one of the strongest people I know," Amanda said, her voice softening. "She works 2 jobs, takes a full course load, does her reserve duties, and still finds time to sit with Tyler during his chemo sessions. She never complains. But I see her sometimes, late at night, just crying in the bathroom because she's so exhausted." David stood, pacing to the window. Rain still streaked the glass. Sergeant watched him, alert. "Maya doesn't know you tried to do this?" David asked. "No, she'd kill me if she knew." David turned back to his daughter. "Tomorrow, you're going to introduce me to Maya, and you're going to let me help." Amanda's eyes widened. "Dad, I can't ask you. You're not asking. I'm offering." He sat down beside her. "Amanda, I know I failed you. I know I wasn't the father you needed, especially after your mom died. But I need you to understand something about those medals." He picked up the Bronze Star case, opening it. "This isn't about me," David said quietly. "It never was. This represents a moment when I chose to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. It's a reminder that service means something. And if I can't serve my own daughter and her friend when they need help, then what the hell was any of it for?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't want you to think you have to buy my forgiveness. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to earn it." David set the medal aside. "Your mom once told me that the real courage isn't on the battlefield. It's in showing up every day for the people you love, even when it's messy and uncomfortable. I didn't understand that then. I think I'm starting to now. Sergeant stood suddenly, his ears perked toward the door. A moment later, there was a knock sharp. Urgent. David opened the door to find a young woman in an Army PT uniform, rain-soaked, her face pale with panic. "I'm looking for Amanda Hayes," she gasped. "The RIA said she might be here." "I'm Maya Rodriguez. It's Tyler, the hospital just called. There's a complication. I need to get to Colorado Springs Memorial right now, but my car won't start," and she saw Amanda behind David. "Maya," Amanda said, moving forward. "Dad, this is—" "Get in the truck," David interrupted, already grabbing his keys. "Both of you." "Sergeant, load up." They ran through the rain to David's pickup. Sergeant leaped into the back seat beside the two young women. David started the engine, and they pulled out into the storm. "How bad is it?" David asked, his voice calm and commanding. "They said something about his white blood cell count crashing," Maya said, her voice shaking. "They need me there to authorize emergency treatment. He's alone, and he's scared, and I promised I'd never." "He's not alone," David said firmly. "We're 10 minutes out. I know the head of oncology at Memorial. Former Army surgeon. I'll make sure Tyler gets the best care." Maya stared at him through the rearview mirror. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." David glanced at Amanda, who was holding Maya's hand tightly. "Because my daughter thinks you're worth fighting for," David said. "And I trust her judgment." For the first time since Jennifer's death, David felt like he was on the right mission. Part 4. The Hospital Campaign, Colorado. Springs Memorial Hospital rose against the night sky like a fortress of glass and steel. David parked in the emergency bay, technically illegal, but he'd deal with that later, and the four of them rushed through the automatic doors. Sergeant stayed pressed against Maya's side, his service dog training kicking in even though he was technically retired. The emergency department was chaos. Nurses rushing between curtain bays, monitors beeping, someone crying in triage. Maya ran straight to the desk. "Tyler Rodriguez," she gasped to the nurse. "They called me complications. I'm his guardian. Room 12, the nurse said, already moving. Dr. Pierce is with him now." They followed her through the maze of hallways. Amanda kept pace with Maya, while David hung back slightly, his military bearing making people instinctively move aside. Sergeant's presence helped too. The distinctive look of a working dog created a path through the crowd. Room 12 was a pediatric ICU suite. Through the glass, David could see a small figure in the bed, surrounded by machines. A doctor in blue scrubs was adjusting a 4-line, speaking quietly to a nurse. Maya pressed her hand against the glass. "Tyler." The doctor looked up and came to the door. He was in his 40s, with kind eyes and the calm demeanor of someone who dealt with life-and-death situations daily. His name tag read, Dr. Michael Pierce, Pediatric Oncology. "Miss Rodriguez," Dr. Pierce said. "Tyler's stable for now." His white blood cell count dropped suddenly, which made him vulnerable to infection. "We've started broad-spectrum antibiotics and a white blood cell growth factor. He's going to need to stay in isolation for at least 72 hours. Can I see him?" Maya asked. "Of course. Gown and mask first." Dr. Pierce glanced at David and Amanda. "Family only in the ICU." "I'm her family," Amanda said immediately. Stepping forward, Dr. Pierce started to protest, but David spoke up. "Doctor, I'm Lieutenant Colonel David Hayes, retired. I served with Colonel James Patterson at Landstuhl Medical Center. Jim's a friend. I believe he's on staff here now." Dr. Pierce's expression shifted to recognition. "Colonel Patterson is our chief of surgery." "You served together?" "Germany and Kuwait." He saved my life once when a piece of shrapnel nicked my femoral artery. David's tone was casual, but carried weight. I'd appreciate if you could extend some courtesy here. Maya needs support. It wasn't a request, not really. It was one veteran speaking to another in a language civilians didn't always understand. The language of brotherhood and favors earned in blood. Dr. Pierce hesitated, then nodded. Gowns and masks for everyone. And the dog stays outside. Sergeant whined softly as they left him in the waiting area, but he settled immediately, ever the professional. Inside the room, Tyler looked impossibly small. He was 12, but could have passed for 9, his body worn down by months of treatment. His head was bald from chemotherapy, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. But when he saw Maya, his face lit up. "Maya," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, probably from the oxygen mask they'd removed recently. "Hey, little man," Maya said, moving to his bedside. Her voice stayed steady, but David could see her hands trembling as she took Tyler's. "Gave me a scare there. Sorry. I tried to be tough like you." Tyler's gaze shifted to Amanda. "Hey, Amanda. Hey, Tyler." Amanda's voice was thick with emotion. "Brought reinforcements." Tyler looked at David with curious, tired eyes. "Are you a soldier?" "Was," David said, stepping closer. "Lieutenant Colonel David Hayes, but you can call me David. Did you fight bad guys?" "A few, but the real heroes are people like your sister. She's fighting every day to keep you safe. That's the hardest battle of all." Tyler smiled faintly. "She's pretty cool." "Yeah, she is." Dr. Pierce pulled Maya aside to discuss treatment details. David heard fragments. Neutropenic fever. Risk of sepsis. 72 hours critical. Then reassess the chemo protocol. Amanda stayed with Tyler, talking quietly about school and a TV show they both watched. David observed them, seeing his daughter in a new light. She was good at this connecting, comforting. She'd inherited Jennifer's warmth, the part of his ex-wife that had balanced his own rigid nature. Maya returned, her face ashen. David waited until Tyler drifted into an exhausted sleep before following her into the hallway. "What did Pierce say?" David asked. Maya leaned against the wall, pulling off her mask. "Tyler's going to be okay this time. But Dr. Pierce wants to adjust his protocol, use a different chemo drug that's more effective, but..." She closed her eyes. "Not covered by Tricari. It's considered experimental. $20,000 per treatment cycle. 6 cycles minimum. $120,000, David said quietly. "I don't have that kind of money. I don't even have 20,000. The hospital has charity programs, but the waiting list is months long, and Tyler doesn't have months." Maya's voice cracked. "I've looked into loans, fundraisers, everything. There's no way." Amanda joined them, her eyes fierce. "We'll figure it out, Maya. I swear." "Amanda," David interrupted gently. "Can I talk to Maya alone for a minute?" His daughter looked between them, then nodded reluctantly. "I'll be with Tyler." When they were alone, David said, "How much do you have saved?" Maya blinked. "What?" "How much money do you have right now that you could put toward Tyler's treatment?" "I maybe 8,000? Between savings and what I can liquidate." "But that's nowhere near." "It's a start," David said. He pulled out his phone. "I have some savings. Military retirement isn't much, but I've been careful. I can cover 60,000 immediately. Another 30 in 90 days when some bonds mature." Maya stared at him. I can't accept. You're not accepting charity. Consider it a loan." "I can't pay back $90,000, Maya said, her voice rising. "I'm a college student working 2 jobs. I'll be paying that off for decades." "Then you'll pay it off for decades," David said simply. "Or you'll pay what you can, when you can." Or you'll pay it forward someday when you're a nurse and you see another soldier's family struggling. He met her eyes. Maya, I spent 30 years serving my country. That means I served you. You're a reservist, which means you've taken the same oath I did. We take care of our own. I don't understand why you're doing this. David glanced through the window at Tyler's room, where Amanda sat beside the bed, holding the boy's small hand. My daughter tried to sell my Bronze Star today to help you, David said quietly. She was willing to destroy something I valued to protect someone she cares about. That's what service looks like in the real world. It's messy and imperfect, but it's real. I've been so focused on medals and ceremonies that I forgot what they actually represent. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Colonel Hayes. David. Just David. He put his phone away. Tomorrow, I'll contact the hospital's financial office. We'll set up a payment plan for Tyler's treatment. You focus on being his sister, not his accountant. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me help. Say you'll trust me. David's voice softened. And say you'll look after my daughter. She needs friends like you. People who understand what real strength looks like. Maya wiped her eyes, then straightened her shoulders in a way that reminded David of every young soldier he'd ever commanded, scared but determined. Vulnerable but unbreakable. Yes, sir, she said. David smiled. Good. Now let's go check on Tyler. But as they turned back toward the room, David's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a Fort Carson number he recognized. Garrison Command. He answered. Hayes. Colonel Hayes, this is Major Bradley from the Inspector General's office. We need you to come to Fort Carson immediately. There's been an allegation made against you. It's serious. David's blood went cold. What kind of allegation? Stolen valor, sir. Someone's claiming you're impersonating an officer and fraudulently using military medals for personal gain. The line went dead. David stood frozen in the hospital hallway, the weight of 24 hours crashing down on him. Amanda pawning his medal. Maya's crisis. And now this someone was coming after him, and he had no idea who or why. Part 5. The accusation. Fort Carson's Inspector General office was located in a nondescript building on the south side of the base, designed to be bureaucratically intimidating. David sat in a gray waiting room at 0700 the next morning, Sergeant at his feet. The dog sensed his handler's tension and pressed close, offering silent support. Amanda had wanted to come, but David insisted she stay with Maya and Tyler at the hospital. This was his fight. Major Bradley emerged from an inner office. He was younger than David, maybe 35, with the crisp bearing of someone who'd spent more time behind a desk than in the field. His expression was professionally neutral. Colonel Hayes, thank you for coming in. Didn't seem like I had a choice, David said, standing. What's this about? Let's talk in my office. The office was small and sterile. A desk, 2 chairs, an American flag in the corner. Major Bradley gestured for David to sit, then opened a folder. 3 days ago, we received a formal complaint through our anonymous reporting system. The complainant alleges that you've been fraudulently claiming military service, specifically misrepresenting your combat record and unlawfully possessing medals you didn't earn. David's jaw tightened. That's absurd. I served 31 years. I have documentation for everything. I'm sure you do. However, the allegation is serious enough that we have to investigate. Major Bradley pulled out a photograph. Do you recognize this medal? It was David's Silver Star, photographed in its case. The image looked like it had been taken recently. That's mine. It's in my storage unit. According to the complainant, this medal was offered for sale at a pawn shop downtown 3 days ago by someone claiming to be your daughter. The complainant suggests this is evidence of fraud, that you obtained the medal illegally and attempted to profit from it. My daughter did go to a pawn shop, David admitted. But she didn't sell anything. She changed her mind. Can you prove that? The pawn shop owner can verify. The pawn shop owner confirms someone matching your daughter's description brought in military medals but left without completing a transaction. That doesn't disprove the fraud allegation. It actually raises more questions. Major Bradley leaned forward. Colonel Hayes, stolen valor is a federal crime. If there's any irregularity in your service record or medals, now is the time to disclose it. There's no irregularity, David said, his voice hardening. I earned every decoration I received. I have the D2 Fortins award citations. Witness statements, everything is documented. Then you won't mind if we conduct a thorough review of your service jacket. It wasn't a question. David felt the trap closing. This wasn't just about verifying his records. Someone wanted him investigated, wanted him under scrutiny. But who? And why now? Am I being charged with anything? David asked. Not at this time. But you're under investigation. That means certain restrictions apply. You cannot represent yourself as a retired officer in any official capacity. You cannot use your military credentials to gain access or favors. And you cannot leave the Colorado Springs area without notifying this office. David thought of Maya, of Tyler's treatment, of the calls he'd planned to make to Colonel Patterson and other contacts. All of that was now compromised. Who filed the complaint? David asked. Anonymous reports are confidential. That's convenient. Major Bradley's expression didn't change. Colonel Hayes, I understand your frustration. But the system exists for a reason. We take allegations of stolen valor seriously, especially when they involve field-grade officers. The integrity of the entire award system depends on accountability. David stood. I've given you my service number and my authorization to review my records. If you have specific questions, contact me directly. Otherwise, I have nothing more to say without a lawyer present. That's your right. Major Bradley stood as well. We'll be in touch. David and Sergeant left the building, stepping into the cold morning air. His phone buzzed immediately, a text from Amanda. Tyler's stable. Maya says thank you again. How did it go? He didn't respond yet. Instead, he called a number he'd hoped never to use. His old JAG attorney from his final deployment. A sharp lawyer named Captain Sarah Monroe, who'd since retired and opened a private practice in Denver. David Hayes. Sarah's voice was warm with surprise. It's been, 3 years? 4. Sarah, I need help. Stolen valor investigation. The warmth vanished, replaced by professional focus. Talk to me. David explained everything. Amanda's attempted pawn, Maya's situation, the anonymous complaint, Major Bradley's restrictions. Sarah was quiet for a moment. This doesn't smell right. Stolen valor investigations usually start with public claims or benefit fraud. An anonymous tip about a pawn shop visit? That's thin. Someone's using the IG process to harass you. But who? That's what we need to find out. David, do you have any enemies? Anyone you disciplined? Any old grudges? David thought back through 30 years of service. Disciplinary actions, tough calls, the inevitable resentments that came with command. But nothing that would explain this level of vindictiveness. Nothing recent, he said. I've been retired for 2 years. I keep to myself. What about this situation with Maya? You said you're helping with her brother's medical bills. Did you make any financial promises? Use your rank to pressure anyone? I offered to help with Tyler's treatment. I contacted an old friend, Colonel Patterson. He's chief of surgery at Memorial. But that was personal, not official. Did you identify yourself as Lieutenant Colonel Hayes when you made contact? David hesitated. Yes, but I am a retired lieutenant colonel. I'm not impersonating. Under investigation, those lines get blurry. Sarah interrupted. David, someone's watching you. They knew about Amanda and the pawn shop within days. They're building a narrative. Disgraced officer uses stolen valor to manipulate people. Profits from medals, leverages rank for personal gain. That's insane. It's also effective. Look, I'm coming down there. Don't talk to anyone from the IG office without me present. Don't make any more calls using your rank. And David? Find out who filed that complaint. Because whoever they are, they're not done with you yet. After the call ended, David sat in his truck. Sergeant watching him with concerned eyes. Someone's trying to destroy me. Buddy, David murmured, scratching the dog's ears. Question is why? His phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. Against his better judgment, David answered. Colonel Hayes? The voice was male, middle-aged, unfamiliar. We haven't met, but I know your daughter. Amanda's a sweet girl. Real talented. Be a shame if her future got complicated because of her father's indiscretions. David's blood went ice cold. Who is this? Someone who thinks you should back off. Stop playing hero. Stop using your stolen glory to manipulate vulnerable soldiers. Drop the Maya Rodriguez situation, and this investigation goes away. If you threaten my daughter again, you'll what? You're under investigation, Colonel. You have no authority, no power. You're just an old man clinging to medals you probably didn't earn. The line went dead. David stared at his phone, rage and fear warring inside him. This wasn't about stolen valor. This was about Maya and Tyler. Someone wanted him to abandon them, but who would care enough about one reservist and her sick brother to weaponize the Inspector General system? David started the truck, his mind racing. He needed answers, and he knew exactly where to start. The hospital. Someone at Colorado Springs Memorial knew what was happening. Someone who didn't want David Hayes helping Maya Rodriguez, and Sergeant, sensing his handler shift from defensive to offensive, sat up straight, ears forward. Ready for the hunt. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Part 6. The conspiracy unveiled. David returned to Colorado Springs Memorial with a purpose. Sergeant trotted beside him, attracting the usual mix of smiles and respectful nods that service dogs received. But David's mind was elsewhere, replaying the threatening phone call and analyzing every interaction from the past 48 hours. He found Maya in Tyler's room, dozing in a chair beside the bed. Tyler was sleeping, his small chest rising and falling steadily. Amanda had gone back to campus for a morning class, but promised to return by afternoon. David gently touched Maya's shoulder. She startled awake, immediately checking Tyler, then relaxing when she saw he was still asleep. Sorry, David whispered. Can we talk outside? They stepped into the hallway. Maya looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her reserve uniform rumpled from sleeping in a chair. Has anyone from the hospital contacted you recently? David asked. Financial office, administration, anyone asking questions about how you're paying for Tyler's treatment? Maya frowned. Actually, yes. Yesterday morning, before Tyler's crisis, someone from billing called. A woman. She asked a lot of questions about my income, my military status, whether I had outside financial support. Did she give a name? Harris? Harrison? Something like that? David pulled out his phone, accessing the hospital's public directory. Jennifer Harrison, Director of Financial Services? That's her. What exactly did she say? Maya thought back. She said there were irregularities in my account, that someone had tried to make a large payment toward Tyler's treatment without proper authorization. She asked if I was involved in any kind of fraud or if someone was coercing me. David's jaw tightened. He'd contacted Colonel Patterson about helping with Tyler's bills, but he hadn't made any payments yet. Someone was preemptively poisoning that well. Did you tell her about me? David asked. I mentioned that Amanda's father had offered to help, but I didn't give your name. Why? Because someone's trying to make me look like a criminal, and they're using Tyler's situation as leverage. David explained the stolen valor investigation, the anonymous complaint, and the threatening phone call. Maya's face went pale. Oh my God. David, if helping us is causing you problems, it's not about you, David said firmly. Someone's using you to get to me. I need to find out who, but why? What would anyone gain from destroying your reputation? That was the question. David ran through possibilities. Old grudges, jealous colleagues, someone he'd disciplined. But none of it made sense. He'd been retired for 2 years, living quietly, bothering no one. Unless ... double quote Mayo. When did Tyler get admitted to this hospital? Was it always Memorial? No. We started at Parkview Medical Center, closer to Fort Carson. But Tyler's case was complicated, so they transferred him here 3 months ago. Dr. Pierce is one of the best pediatric oncologists in Colorado. Who made the transfer decision? Tyler's original doctor, Dr. Keller. He said Memorial had better resources for experimental treatments. David's instincts, honed from decades of spotting enemy patterns, started firing. What was Tyler's treatment going to cost at Parkview? About half what it costs here. But Dr. Keller said the quality of care was worth it. Did insurance cover the transfer? Mostly. There were some extra fees, but Dr. Keller's office helped me navigate the paperwork. David pulled out his phone and searched for Dr. Keller. The man's bio appeared. Dr. Richard Keller. Oncology, Parkview Medical Center. Extensive credentials, board certified, seemingly legitimate, but something nagged at David. He dug deeper, searching for financial connections between Parkview and Memorial. It took several minutes, but he found it, a recent article in a medical journal about a partnership between the two hospitals for high-value patient transfers. High value, meaning expensive cases that generated significant billing. Maya, did anyone at Parkview mention why they were specifically recommending Memorial over other hospitals? Dr. Keller said Dr. Pierce was the best. But honestly, I was too overwhelmed to question it. Tyler needed help, and they said this was the best place. David's mind raced. What if Tyler's transfer wasn't about quality of care? What if it was about moving a lucrative patient? A military-insured case with potential for high-cost experimental treatments from one facility to another? And what if David, by offering to help with costs, had threatened that revenue stream? It sounded paranoid, but David had seen corruption before. Financial fraud in military contracting, kickback schemes in supply chains. Healthcare was just another system, and systems could be manipulated. I need to talk to Dr. Pierce, David said. He's not here. He's at a conference in Denver until tomorrow. Of course he was. Convenient. David's phone rang. Sarah Monroe, his lawyer. David, I've been digging into the stolen valor complaint. It was filed by someone claiming to be a concerned citizen, but the details are too specific. Whoever filed it had inside information. They knew about Amanda, the pawn shop, even the approximate value of your medals. Could it be hospital staff? David asked. Why would wait? You think this is connected to the kid's treatment? I think someone doesn't want me interfering with their revenue stream. Tyler Rodriguez is a high-cost patient. If I pay his bills directly, the hospital loses leverage to charge for expensive experimental treatments. Sarah was quiet for a moment. That's a serious accusation. You'd need proof. Then I'll get proof. David, you're under investigation. You can't go rogue here. I'm not going rogue. I'm protecting a soldier and her brother. That's what I do. He hung up before Sarah could argue further. Sergeant whined softly, sensing David's agitation. David knelt and met the dog's eyes. I need you to do something, buddy. I need you to track. Sergeant's ears perked up. Tracking was his specialty, finding people, detecting threats, following scent trails through chaos. We're looking for whoever made that phone call. Someone in this hospital who doesn't want me here. It was a long shot, but David had learned to trust Sergeant's instincts. They walked through the hospital corridors, David watching for anything unusual while Sergeant's nose worked. Most staff ignored them. Service dogs were common in hospitals. But when they passed the administrative wing, Sergeant suddenly stopped. His hackles raised slightly, and he let out a low growl, the warning sound he made when detecting a threat. David followed the dog's gaze. Through the glass door of an office labeled Financial Services, he saw Jennifer Harrison on the phone. Her body language was tense, aggressive. She was arguing with someone. Sergeant growled again. "Good boy," David murmured. "Stay." He pushed open the office door. Harrison looked up, startled, and quickly ended her call. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone professionally pleasant but her eyes wary. "I'm David Hayes. I believe you spoke with Maya Rodriguez about her brother's account." Harrison's expression remained neutral. "I'm not at liberty to discuss patient financial information." "Then, let's discuss the anonymous complaint filed against me with Fort Carson's Inspector General." That got a reaction, a tiny flicker of surprise before she controlled it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Because I find it interesting that within 24 hours of me offering to help Maya with Tyler's bills, I'm suddenly under investigation for stolen valor. And you just happened to call Maya, asking about financial irregularities at the same time. That's standard procedure for high-cost cases." "Is it also standard procedure to threaten a retired officer's daughter?" Harrison stood. "I think you should leave. Not until you tell me who's behind this." "Who told you to file that complaint?" "I didn't file anything. And if you don't leave, I'll call security." David leaned forward slightly. He didn't touch her, didn't threaten, but his decades of command presence filled the small office. "I fought in 2 wars. I've seen real enemies. And you know what I learned? The people who hide behind bureaucracy and make anonymous complaints are usually cowards. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to find out who you're working with. I'm going to expose every dirty connection between patient transfers and financial kickbacks. And when I do, your name is going to be all over it." Harrison's face went pale. "You can't prove anything. Watch me." David turned and walked out, Sergeant at his side. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake, Colonel. Last warning." David smiled grimly. Good. Let them know he wasn't backing down, because whoever was trying to destroy him had just made their first mistake. They'd threatened his daughter, and that meant the gloves were off. Part 7. The confrontation. David spent the next 12 hours building his case. With Sarah Monroe's help, he obtained financial records showing suspicious patterns. Tyler Rodriguez's transfer to Memorial coincided with a sudden increase in experimental treatment authorizations at the hospital. More digging revealed that Dr. Keller at Parkview received referral bonuses for high-value patient transfers. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Colonel James Patterson, David's old friend and Memorial's chief of surgery. Called him directly. "David, we need to talk." "My office. Now." David drove to the hospital, Sergeant in the passenger seat. Patterson's office was in the administrative tower, overlooking the mountains. The surgeon was waiting, his expression grave. "Jim, if this is about the investigation." "It's not," Patterson interrupted. "Well, it is, but not the way you think." "David, I've been hearing rumors. Questions about your service record. Suggestions that you're using your rank fraudulently. I didn't believe any of it, so I made some calls. And I found out someone's been systematically contacting people you served with, digging for dirt. Except there isn't any dirt to find. Your record is spotless. Which made me wonder, why would someone go to such lengths? Revenue, David said. Tyler Rodriguez is a lucrative patient. I threatened to pay his bills directly, which would have cut into experimental treatment charges. Someone in this hospital didn't like that. Patterson's jaw tightened. You're accusing my hospital of fraud. I'm accusing individuals within your hospital. Not you. Do you have proof? David laid out what he'd found. The transfer patterns, the referral bonuses, the timing of the stolen valor complaint coinciding with his offer to help Maya. Patterson listened, his expression growing darker. Jennifer Harrison in financial services. She's involved. She's also the sister-in-law of Dr. Richard Keller at Parkview. Patterson pulled up a file on his computer. I didn't make the connection before different last names. But if Keller was referring high-cost patients here, and Harrison was ensuring maximum billing, it's a kickback scheme, David finished. Tyler wasn't transferred because Memorial had better care. He was transferred because he was profitable. Patterson stood and paced to the window. I fought in Kandahar, David. Saw a lot of ugly things. But this? Profiting off a sick child? That's a different kind of evil. Can you help me prove it? I can do better than that. I can shut it down. Patterson picked up his phone. I'm calling the board of directors. Emergency meeting. And David? You're going to testify. I'm under investigation. My credibility. Your credibility is fine. I verified your entire service record myself. The stolen valor complaint is baseless, and I'm going to make sure the IG knows it. 2 hours later, David sat in a conference room facing Memorial Hospital's board of directors. Sarah Monroe sat beside him, and Sargent lay at his feet. Across the table were 5 board members: Patterson, Jennifer Harrison, and via video conference, Dr. Richard Keller. Patterson presented the evidence methodically. Financial records, email chains between Harrison and Keller, patient transfer data showing systematic patterns of moving insured military patients from Parkview to Memorial for expensive treatments. Harrison tried to defend herself. We were following standard protocols. You were profiting from vulnerable families, Patterson said coldly. Tyler Rodriguez's treatment costs were inflated by 30% compared to standard protocols. The experimental drug you recommended? It's no more effective than the standard treatment. But it costs 10 times as much and isn't covered by insurance. Dr. Pierce approved. Dr. Pierce was following your financial recommendations, not making independent medical decisions. Patterson turned to the board. We have a systemic problem. Financial staff influencing medical decisions for profit. One of the board members, an older woman with steel gray hair, leaned forward. What about the stolen valor complaint against Colonel Hayes? Harrison's face went pale. I filed it, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Dr. Keller and I. We were worried that if Colonel Hayes paid Tyler's bills directly, it would expose our arrangement. We thought if we discredited him, made him look like a fraud, he'd back off. And the threatening phone call to my daughter? David asked, his voice dangerously quiet. That was Keller. Harrison looked at the video screen, where Dr. Keller's face had gone ashen. He said we needed to scare you off. The room erupted in controlled fury. The board members conferred quietly. Then the gray-haired woman spoke. Dr. Keller, your privileges at Parkview are immediately suspended pending a full investigation. Miss Harrison, you're terminated effective immediately. We'll be referring this matter to law enforcement for potential fraud charges. She turned to David. Colonel Hayes, on behalf of Colorado Springs Memorial Hospital, I apologize. Your service record is impeccable, and the stolen valor complaint was malicious fiction. We'll be submitting a formal retraction to Fort Carson's Inspector General. David nodded, feeling the weight of the past 3 days finally lifting. What about Tyler? Maya's voice came from the doorway. David turned to see her standing there, Amanda beside her. They must have been waiting outside. Patterson stood. Tyler will receive the best care we can provide at standard military insurance rates. No experimental upsells, no inflated costs. And if there are gaps in coverage, the hospital's charity fund will cover them. That's my personal guarantee. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. As the meeting broke up, David walked into the hallway with Sergeant, Amanda, and Maya. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting everything in golden light. It's over, Amanda said, hugging her father tightly. Dad, I'm so sorry I started all this by trying to pawn your medal. You didn't start anything, David said gently. You tried to help a friend. That's who you are. I'm proud of you. Maya approached, Tyler's medical chart in her hands. Colonel Hayes, David, I don't know how to thank you. Take care of your brother. Graduate. Become the nurse you're meant to be. That's all the thanks I need. It's not enough, Maya said. You fought for us. You risked everything. David looked at Sergeant, who sat calmly at his side, ever faithful. I had good backup. As they walked toward Tyler's room, David's phone rang. Major Bradley from the IG office. Colonel Hayes, I wanted to inform you personally that the investigation is closed. The complaint has been withdrawn and deemed unfounded. Your service record remains untarnished. I apologize for any inconvenience. Understood, Major. Thank you.